difficulties. We are live. Welcome, everyone, to the December edition of Echo Means Business live networking series that we've been doing all of 2023. This is the December edition of what we're trying to do. Oh my gosh, it's the end of 2023 edition of what it is we're trying to do. Sorry we're a little late, but I feel like that's maybe the theme of 2023 is like late, but we made it. And so we're here live talking about something that maybe you shouldn't be so late for, and that's snow and ice management. One of the services that we all provide that you kind of got to be on the spot for, which ironically, on a personal level, it's been quite warm and nice here in Michigan up until about 6 hours ago. And then apparently the weather heard we were doing this live stream and was like, oh, cool. I'll freeze up. I'll do snow. Yeah, sure. So as soon as actually we wrap this up, I have to go to work. So we won't be too long-winded here, but we want to hang out and chat about all things snow and ice management. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Michael from Bedell Property Management. I'm one of Echo Means Business User Advisory Group Council members, and I'm joined by some of my fellow User Advisory Group members here for 2023, and we're going to talk about all things snow and ice management. So I'll let everybody introduce themselves, and then we'll just dive in and see where the conversation takes us tonight. So Alex, start with you. Go ahead, introduce yourself tonight.
Hi guys, I'm Alex, owner of A-Carry Landscaping based out of Rhode Island. So we offer the landscaping and the snow management.
Very good, very good. And then I believe we have Don in the Great White North, who's managed to string together some tin cans up there and join us tonight. Don, tell us what you got going on there. Thanks for making it.
Thanks. Hey everybody, Don Stewart, owner of Stewada Lawn, offer lawn and landscaping services, and then obviously snow removal. Snow's pretty important up here. We get a lot of it. It's been similar to what Michael just said. It has been a pretty warm winter so far for us. So even up here, I think we've only had 3 or 4 times when I've had to go out, and our contracts start November 1st. So it's been a pretty light winter so far. So.
There you go. That's I'm sure it'll all even out. Don's from the Calgary area, and you may have to switch it up from centimeters to inches. But what's your average snowfall? I think that's kind of like a baseline question that we'll ask everybody to give a little context. In terms of like how much snow you actually deal with. So any idea roughly in like inches what your average annual snowfall is there locally?
So we'd probably get like it really depends, because we get a lot of so as Michael just said, I live in Calgary, so I'm like 90 minutes from the Rocky Mountains, so from Banff kind of area. So we get a lot of kind of November, well, even in October. We actually had some snow in October this year. We get a lot of wet snowfalls at that time of year, which is super heavy, super wet. And then during the rest of the year, it typically gets so cold that it's strictly just powder, right? So it's super light kind of snow. But honestly, like rough estimates, like we'd get probably 4 feet a year, I'd say probably.
Okay.
So spread over 5 months though, and honestly, the majority of that is at the beginning of the season and at the end of the season, just because of the wet, heavy.
I would have thought you would have got more, because that's really like 48 inches is your annual snowfall, and that's basically what we get in my market here locally. But some property that I'm tied into 3-4 hours north of me up in, because I'm Michigan, we had to do the whole thing with the hand up here, and like what's really more on this side over here, in a snow belt, their average snowfall is more like 120 inches a year, and like a light year will be like 60, 70, 80, and then I think their record is like 280 or something like that. They have some like big pole, maybe like 30 minutes down the way that like has like all the inches on it, and then like different years for like the like record low snowfall. I think there was one year they only got like maybe 30 inches or something like that, and then like I said, I think it's like 200 something, which is just crazy. And it's exactly what you said, Don. Like some of it's wet and heavy, a lot of it's pretty powdery, but I think they just kind of keep measuring, if you will. So cool. And then we got Josh who's joined us here. So Josh, give everybody the lowdown on who you are, and then we'll continue the conversation of the snow and the ice management.
Well, I'm Josh Carvin. I own Carvin Green Company out of Andover, Massachusetts. Landscape construction, snow and ice. Average snowfall should be around 40 to 50 inches over here, but I think we've been lucky to average 35 to 40 the past couple of years.
A little light, eh? Yeah, well, that's we could talk about that as a topic on down the line here, is the cyclicality of snow and ice, and how you got to kind of maybe do it on a little bit more of a long horizon. The people that get into it after like a big snow year, thinking that they're going to make bank every year, always seem to kind of get burned. But cool. So real quick, I see we got the Jar twins who joined us. Thank you so much. It's always good to hear from you too, and hope that you guys are doing well, maybe even getting in on some of the same snow that I have to deal with. And then Mark Thomas Builder, I almost certain that he's getting more snow than I do, just because his average snowfall's got to be like another 20 inches on top of mine. He always seems to get a little bit more than we do, except on a few rare occasions. If I get 6 inches, he's getting like 9 or 10. Or if we get 1 or 2, he's getting 4 or 5 for a whole host of reasons. But make some good snowblower content. Seen that over the years. So cool. Well, I know, Don, you mentioned you've already had to go out a few times this year. I've already gone out a few times this year, and I'll be going out again in like 30 or 40 minutes. Alex, Josh, I know you guys are like East Coast guys. Have you gotten in on the fun at all this year, or not yet?
Nope.
Nothing.
We had 60 degrees and 4 inches of rain today. So
Yep.
Okay. Well, there you go.
The streets were flooding, and I was just thinking about how much money it would have been if that was actually snow, because I mean everything just would have shut down. Like 3 inches, 4 inches of rain is what, 3-4 feet of snow. So I mean that would have taken us till Christmas to just do a fraction of the removals.
Yeah, it would have been the season's worth of snow in an afternoon, right?
Yeah.
It would have been something that you could have, told that story decades on down the line about the legendary snow of December 2023 that never happened. It was just rain, apparently. So, any prospects for you guys? The short term here to get anything? You think the pattern's going to change, or is it? You think it's going to be maybe more of what Josh was saying, where it'll just be another light year?
I know for us on the East Coast, that's for sure. I'm thinking. I think the days for us of those 50 plus, 70 plus winters, 2014, 2015 are done. I think we're on the light side from at least for the foreseeable future here.
What about you, Alex?
I don't really see it. I mean, we've gotten like one good blizzard in the past probably 4 or 5 years. So
okay.
Like Josh was saying, I can remember 2014, 2015. It was like you didn't have to stop at any stop signs because they just weren't visible.
Yeah. The beauties of snow and ice management, where in the storms, stop signs become more like
even after
fieldish signs.
The snow was just so high. It was like the stop sign just wasn't there. It was just all white on the side of the road.
Yeah, that is a lot of snow.
Years. It's been years.
Got it.
We're not we're not expecting any snow for the next at least 2 weeks, which would probably be like that's 4 snowfalls during November and December, which for me, like when I'm budgeting and putting together quotes kind of thing, I assume we're getting 5 a month. And usually, like you said earlier, Michael, it kind of balances itself out. You know, you get a couple light months and then you get hammered later on. I still think personally where I am, we'll still get them. Like I'm close enough to the mountains. They haven't gotten quite as much as they have in past years, but they're still getting quite a bit of snow out in the mountains. So it'll hit us. It's just a matter of when and how much. But
Right on. Well, what do you guys? I guess this is a little bit of a rabbit hole thing, but before we get back into like maybe more boots on the ground topics, since it's kind of trending there, what do you guys do to forecast for the year? You know, like Don mentioned, you know, maybe just kind of like taking some averages, but beyond just kind of like past seasonal numbers, do you guys actually like get into any weather forecasting or use any paid services or anything like that?
I look at the Farmer's Almanac and hope.
Sure.
I definitely looked at it when it came out in the news, at least for our area. I don't use any forecasting apps. I find weather to be if you're doing snow removal, you really just have to wake up in the morning and go with whatever's happening. I know obviously someone like Josh who has crews and stuff like that, you got to do a bit more planning, but I've given up on listening to what the weather network says or anything like that. Like, especially in an area where I am, like we had a snowfall warning last week for 2 days and barely got anything. And then when they removed the snowfall warning, we got 20 centimeters. So it's
Really?
you never know when it's going to hit. And I think every area has their own little unique weather pattern. So I shouldn't say we have something special, but being this close to the mountains, you really never know how much is going to get dropped over the mountains and how much is actually going to make it to Calgary. And I think that's our big, at least for our area, that's the unknown for us. But
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, it either speaks volumes about weather Canada in general, or just, you know, if anything, it's maybe not that different from what we have here in the States, where I guess, you know, my 2 cents on all of it is like a lot of things in life, you pay for what you get, and government forecasts are free and publicly available, and they do stuff that's kind of what Don described, where maybe they missed the boat, and some markets are harder to others. Mountain ranges and otherwise can make things a little bit dynamic, or the ocean, you know, for these guys out on the East Coast, or even the Great Lakes for where I am, a little bit less so, but at least for the side of the state that I'm on. But you know, those things play in a little bit, but you know, ultimately. There is more accurate information out there, but it typically lies somewhere behind a paywall or knowing what you're looking for and how to really discern all the data. Because once you kind of go down the rabbit hole, there's, you know, a bazillion pages with a bazillion different pictures and graphs or whatever. But and you know, they can throw out some pretty wild data that makes people go, oh my gosh, how much would this be if it wasn't rain but snow or whatever, right? But the key is having accurate data, because, you know, as Don alluded, you get into where Alex and Josh are, where they're sending out crews of guys, you know. You gotta, it's one thing to be prepared, but it's another thing to just like blow a bunch of money, you know, over preparing and having guys in and waiting around when literally it rains all day, right? So how about you two? Do you guys do anything beyond just the good old National Weather Service here in the States?
We have a paid service that we use to send us text messages, emails, updates throughout the storm, and then at the end they'll give us like a breakdown of each area code that we asked for, snow totals and stuff like that, so we can accurately bill the customer if it's a by the inch customer or by the push and whatnot.
That's awesome. And have you found that to be like really accurate and worth the dollar amount that you pay, or little
It's
hit
a
and miss?
lot more accurate than going on the weatherchannel.com and
Yeah, NOAA.
two towns right next to each other, and they both say like two different things. One's 10 degrees off from the other, and you drive through them though, and they're actually the same temperature. So, I mean, I found that the service that we use has been pretty accurate. They
Perfect.
say because they give us ground pavement temperature
Mm-hmm.
readings as well, which when you're doing salting and zero tolerance type sites, information like that is kind of crucial to understand what kind of conditions you could be up against for that coming week. Or like with Christmas coming, I know we have a couple of churches that we maintain, and there's like midnight mass and stuff like that, and there's a chance of a rain shower, but it's going to be 31 degrees all day. So are we gonna wait until we see that it's frozen, or are we gonna load a truck with salt so that way if we have to leave Christmas Eve dinner, we just grab the truck and go?
Sure.
So that service kind of makes it a little bit more of like a narrow, hey, this could be our plan. We think we're gonna have shovel labor come in at this time, truck drivers at this time, or stuff like that.
Cool. That's good. Do you want to give that group a shout out in case other people are interested?
We use the Weather Pros Storm Team.
Cool.
So
Yes,
this is I can kind of show it on here. So this is the graph for the next couple days. Oh
yeah, I feel like they float around some free stuff on Facebook,
and that's how they got me, was because I tried the free trial, and it was actually like a month and a half long, and they were sending you accurate stuff. So that's how they got me into doing it. And
sure,
it worked,
yeah.
So
that's good. It's important that you found something that works and allows you to not waste time and make your life easier, and they provide you useful data that's relevant to what's going on. I know so I was talking to somebody else a while back, and they said that actually their salt provider offered something very similar to what Alex said, because why would they not want to be on it? It's only upping their sales, if they can have everybody on the ball instead of just kind of whatever. So Josh, what say you? You're the big money fish here. I'm sure you've a whole host of things going on here.
Yeah, I mean, I use a similar product to Alex. We use WeatherWorks for forecasting software, and then certified snow totals. And honestly, I mean, I have trust issues with forecasters, so obviously, I'm paid in. I think I use Radar Scope, which you introduced me to a couple of years ago. WeatherBug, AccuWeather, Weather Channel, and all the paid subs that I can get, I get, and they're usually never right to start with. I mean, they'll get me in a realm. We'll know there'll be some sort of accumulation, whether or not it's sleet or snow. All in all, we kind of take those forecasts, and at that point we put boots on the ground. So you'll have an inspection team of 3 or 4 guys that will go out and check each site. They'll put radar guns and check the ground temperatures just to make sure things correlate. If there's rain, because again, we have one side of 495 could get 6 inches of snow, and the other side could get maybe a dusting. So how to figure that out is usually a foreman on each side that will take care of the area and kind of indicate what to do from there.
Smart. Yeah, I also big fan of the little radar gun that can shoot the temperature. I found that to be very, very, very helpful to figure out what's likely going to happen, and it's actually for people that want to kind of dabble in doing their own forecasting a little bit and doing a little bit of model reading. It's actually something that you can do in real time to fact check whether it's the Euro or the GFS or the NAM or the Canadian or the high res. any of those, the data that they spit out as they're, especially you get into like the high res that's going to come out every hour, you know, what did the ground temperature that it spit out say versus what does your pavement temperature say? And if they're lining up, there's an increased likelihood that you may have a viable forecast solution versus some of them can kind of bust a little bit, and that's a great way to start getting an idea of if it thinks the ground temperature is 39 degrees and that's part of what it's formulating its forecast off of, and you're shooting a ground temperature of like 32 or 33, unless you think there's a reason that it's going to catch up in the next hour or so, then that model solution is not going to be correct. And a lot of like the Weather Channel or some of those other forecast apps, they're using the CFS v2 model, sometimes cross-referenced with the GFS. A few of them are trying to use the new NWS model that came out, but they all have their own like misgivings, if you will. Like they're like any algorithmic product, they're really only designed to run with the data that's input into them. And like, you know, it's a computer, it's pretty advanced, but the weather is more advanced and changes faster and is far more dynamic than just an algorithm can do. So for those of you that have any interest in that, you know, those are maybe some tidbits and some actionable steps that you can try and implement beyond just kind of getting a radar gun and going, well, now what? Like, is it freezing or not? Like, you can actually use that to nerd out a little bit. And I guess the other thing I'll say for everyone here is there's starting to be some guidance that says this is going to be a shift in the Atlantic oscillation, or North Atlantic oscillation, the Arctic oscillation, the AO, the Arctic oscillation. And that could, not that we're going to move out of an El Nino, but as we phase through the cycles, we could, by mid-January, kind of move into a snowier pattern where things kind of trough down far into like Arizona and loop back up through the Great Lakes. And that's typically a pretty favorable pattern to get snow across North America. And then, you know, especially up by dawn, you're really pulling that cold air way down. And so as he referenced, that powdery snow, if I were to take a guess, maybe by the end of January, those mountains will be a little bit full. But, you know, that's just based on how things are kind of setting up. The weather's a big, like, sloshing bowl, and it's pretty cold over in Siberia and that area. And so typically, if that can slosh over and long range, it looks like it may, based on that Arctic oscillation, the AO, then yeah, that's something that we'll have to see plays out in real time. Let's see. Got a couple questions in here. Oh, we got everyone's favorite Brian Fullerton. Thanks for taking the time to spearhead these conversations. Our insight into snow has helped so many, and thanks me, but you know, Brian's also thanking all of us. So thanks to you, Brian. Brian used to be in the UAG many years ago, and always has lots of cool stuff going on. And encourage you to check out all the things. In fact, oddly enough, here's his book sitting right here. So, you know, there you go. People in the UAG go on to do some pretty cool stuff, even though they move on to greener pastures. And then the Law Engineer says, how do you manage your stock of salt de-icing materials? Do you stockpile? Do you buy as needed? Ooh, good question. Josh, let's start with you. What do you say?
We stockpile treated bulk salt and palletize concrete safer, ice melt, and calcium. The buys needed, you know, in the beginning worked out, but you know, when you're finding yourself 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, trying to find a bulk supply that runs out or bag salt doesn't really work. So I think last year we were bringing in tractor trailers worth of straight salt. And when we could, we would mix it in with maybe like a molasses or magnesium to try to treat ourselves. But yeah, I mean, we run through a couple 100 tons a year of salt, so we stockpile everything.
There you go. And that's That's just what was going to be my follow up. Is typically the people that stockpile their own, they've hit that threshold where it makes sense to now have your own bin, and so the salt prices, as Josh and I have talked about outside of this, are like the most anomalous thing ever. They'd probably make you. Much like the weather, maybe you end up with more questions than answers the more you dive deeper into it. But
I'm going to start driving to Michigan with the triaxle just to get salt from you guys. Still be cheaper.
Well, and the price has been dropping too, which is even crazier. It's because it hasn't snowed that much. The people have had to take allotments. Like, I bet you there's a couple guys who, if they could somehow redirect that out your way, they'd be game for it, because they haven't used any of it. What about you, Alex? What do you do?
We have a bin at our shop, and then we buy the palletized calcium chloride as well. So that we already have at our shop, and we load it into the trucks as needed. The bin is big enough that it can last us at least through a whole entire storm. So we're pretty well self-sufficient on our salt.
Good stuff. And Don, and this is like the market to market thing. Like, do you even do much salting in your market? Because typically markets that get a lot of snow, or are thought to get a lot of snow, like some of them don't put any salt down.
So yeah, I never really knew about pre-treatment of properties and stuff like that until I learned about the UAG and kind of Echo Means Business. It's not a thing really here to go pre-treat anything. It's when we get snow, it's just cold, right? Like, it's not like you guys where it's, where you get those rainstorms that turn into cold. It's very rare for us to get that. It's only, like I said before, kind of November and March when we get those kind of storms. I typically don't provide salt products. It's a liability issue a lot of the times for me personally. So we try to stay away from that. But I do, I just buy salt as needed, or an Alaskan ice melt, which is kind of a sidewalk safe kind of product up here. So it's typically what I do. But
nice.
And I'm also only residential. It's a little different. I don't have I can't throw it in the back of my truck and just drop it out the back. So
right on. No, that's why I asked, is like, it's like I mentioned, some of the things I'm involved in northern Michigan, very little in that market gets salted, except for maybe like the Walmart and the Lowe's and the big regional hospital, and I think the state police office up there. And there's a handful of other things, but most people, it's like, they're maybe trying to just keep up with the plowing more than they are the salting, because it's a market where you can get 2, 3, 4 inches every day sometimes, and sometimes that turns into 6 or 8 or 14, and just depends which way the wind blows. And one of the things that's a little unique about my market that Josh kind of referenced is underneath the ground that I sit in now is a salt mine. And it's way under the ground, but it goes from where I'm at all the way out into Lake Erie and kind of over to Cleveland. And based on that, there's just a lot of salt availability here locally, where actually salt is typically cheaper in my market than it is out on the East Coast, even though a lot of salt that comes in on freighters across the Atlantic Ocean. And so you would assume, being relatively close to the ocean, that they would be like, no problem. You can get all the salt. It would be further inland, where you either got to boat it in or put it in train cars or truck it in, that you would obviously pay those additional freight costs. But oddly enough, it's almost like maybe higher powers have their hands in things or something like that. I'll leave it at that. But
and we're talking the difference of almost $100 a yard of salt, not just pennies on the dollar here either.
Yeah. It's a big difference. And then, like you say, you take that and you times it by 100 or 200 yards in a year, and it's a sizable difference. But in turn, what's a little interesting is like beyond that, in my market, everyone wants to be a salt supplier now. And so I don't have to worry about salt availability like at all. It's crazy. There are bins like every 5 miles now. And some of those I have like real good ties to, and some of them like But I'm sitting on a couple thousand gallons of calcium chloride, liquid chloride right now, and typical pallets of walkway melt that we'd have this time of year. More specifically, Troy Clogg's Hot Pink Deicer for those of you that have used the product, and some of the stuff that I want fast, like walkway melt, and just literally load in and go. I'll have on hand, but it would actually, I think, take more time to go back and load in out of like my shop, if you will, versus like all throughout our route. There's just salt suppliers everywhere now, so to be able to swing in and grab a yard or two as needed to just keep the ball moving is pretty ideal. And this year it's like, I feel like there's more suppliers than ever. We haven't had a lot of snow to try it out, but it's a good problem to have. It's I think admittedly, we'll see how it works out for everybody who wants to like be a salt supplier. But if there's somebody like Alex that they already got the bin, they already got the loader there, they got people there, why not sell more product? Especially in some cases, the more you go through, the more you can get a better price. And typically, if you have that set up, you can make some money on that spread. There's the key is you gotta have the quantity to do it. It actually has to snow, right? Otherwise, you've taken on all this extra risk and probably bought extra salt thinking you're a supplier now, and then Mother Nature laughs, right? So let's see, Paul Camara, legend himself. Good to hear from you, brother. Hope you're doing well. And, Paul and everybody, hope you guys have happy holidays and all that stuff. Paul's the man. I'm so happy he joined us tonight. He says, how's insurance costs and policies affected the snow world nowadays? Josh, I think you have some polarizing opinions about this. Would you care to chime in?
Oh, absolutely.
Josh has polarizing opinions about everything.
Everything. Well, I just brought this up in the UAG chat the other day. I mean, it depends on what direction you're going. So let me start with like basic entry level for like residential. A lot of your snow insurance coverage is going to be covered under your general liability or your business owner's policy, even for small commercial. The bigger and bigger you get, when you start getting over to like $100,000, $150,000 worth of revenue, you're going to need a standalone policy that covers a little bit more than just general liability. Those policies, I shared screenshots of these guys, quotes of $20,000 to $37,000 for just a standalone policy. I mean, Alex, I know you pay an arm and a leg down there to an island for the same thing. What you're seeing more and more of is companies that you work for, whether they're standalone, they're nationals or regionals, they're trying to vend the liability and put all of liability on the contractor. So essentially, we're not just snowplow companies, we're insurance carriers ourselves. We carry that liability. We're that bankroll for these people. So this is a problem that a lot of people tend to get into, a lot of contractors tend to get into when they start targeting big box stores or commercial properties, is they go in and they're bidding these properties, not realizing that they're underinsured. They bid these properties, they'll come back with the rest of their RFP, and you're looking for per project aggregate, waiver of subrogation, BP 1416, CG 2292 continued coverages. And these are the things, this is the verbiage and the forms that start getting up to the tens of thousands of dollars. And they do kind of detail like what you want to do. If you're doing $150,000 with the revenue of plowing a year and your snowplow policy is costing you $40,000, now you're kind of is it worth it? add in your $3,000 in salt if you're not billing it right, your overhead costs, your labor. You have to make sure that you're doing your calculations right and making sure that you're insured properly, because the insurance definitely will dictate how you go forward in this industry. It's tough, and I don't foresee insurance just coming down. I think that in that market itself, a lot of companies are getting out of covering snowplow contractors. I think I listened to a podcast the other day, Nationwide, which is one of the biggest insurance companies in this country, has been buying up a lot of the smaller people and just completely eliminating snow coverage and snow forms. And that's a huge problem. That leaves you with a very small market to shop with. So, you're a small guy averaging 150K, paying $30,000-$40,000 a year for just, and when I say standalone, this is just your snow, and these are 100% paid up front. You do not get this money back. This is in addition to your commercial auto, your general liability, and your workman's comp. So, factor that in. You got to make sure you're properly insured and you're not running yourself short, because you lose your house.
100%. Very, very well said. And there's probably maybe a reason why someone like Don would go, yeah, I'm just going to do driveways then. Am I wrong, Don?
You're not wrong. Basic residential, I was quoted, I've been quoted 20K minimum. They won't even talk to you until it's 20K. And part of that policy is I cannot touch a roadway whatsoever. So I completely stay away from commercial. I just do residential. But even still, like Josh and I were talking about this yesterday, like I'm this close to just saying it's not worth it anymore. Like there's a couple things in the industry in terms of snow removal that are just getting to the point where you're either going to see snow removal, people accept that snow removal costs have just gone that much higher. And I think eventually it'll happen. But for me also, like, the possibility of leaf backpack blowers being banned in some areas and that kind of thing too. That's another huge factor in my world, where costs of snow removal are going to just get to the point where people are not going to be able to afford it, I think. But
fascinating. That's an interesting take. Yeah, I was thinking more along the lines of like, so in Josh's case, right, like, aside from the fact that he probably has hedged himself with seasonal agreements and maybe even some snow and ice management insurance in terms of the maybe if it doesn't snow at all, he can get a payout, because there are policies like that are similar to crop insurance, where if you get a lot of snow or you don't get any snow, you can be made whole. But of course now you're buying more insurance, right? But aside from all of those, like he mentioned, you're in his case, it could be $40,000 paid up front, and it's gone. It is what it is. The policy's sold, versus like if Don was doing something similar in my market, a lot of like the residential snow is like prepaid for the season. Maybe it's like $400, $500, $600, $700, $800 for the driveway for the season or whatever. And it's like the inverse. You're getting paid up front. And, some of those even maybe have a cap on it, where if it snows, beyond 50 inches, it now goes to a per push basis or whatever. And so that's kind of more what I was getting at is a lot of people are drawn in by the big money that there can be in snow and even salting. But like any business endeavor, it's kind of a big numbers game, and it just starts getting more convoluted the bigger you get and the more factors you're adding in. And it's kind of like some famous rappers in the 90s said, more money, more problems.
Yeah. And it sucks because you're right. Like a lot of guys, I think the attraction of the commercial is like you got those $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 contracts, and you just don't understand the money behind them. There's still a lot of money in residential plowing, but then you have the same upside where your general liability policy is also based off your revenue. So the more money you're going to make in snow, that cost of that policy is going to go up. And you're also playing with, you're rolling the dice, as if you get no snow, it doesn't matter if you have 80 customers, you're not making any money. we did residential for years, and we averaged $250, $300 an hour per truck, and I think that's pretty average for around here. And that's pretty good. If you have a dense route, you have good drivers and you have good paying customers. It's great. For me, it got to the point where we wanted that more guaranteed money. So we went out and, we split the contracts from seasonal, per push, per hour, and even some thresholds with caps on them. So I still think there's a lot of money to be made in residential. Not here the past 2 years. We had 4 plowable events last year, and even some of those plowable events for residential were questionable as to whether or not you could play with them. But if you're playing on the side of caution, I'd stay with residential, because for I'm going to assume between $2,000 and $5,000, you'd probably covered with the blanketed policy on your general liability for residential snow plowing. Even some small commercial lots, usually under like 5,000 square feet, is typical rule of thumb.
Just to add to that, Michael. So I do have guaranteed contracts. So they pay a certain amount per month for unlimited clearings kind of thing. I don't have a cap on mine per se. So I am guaranteed that revenue. It's just that I'm also taking on all the risk of there being, 15 to 20 snowfalls rather than the 5 that I'm quoting. So it's like you guys said, it's a numbers game. And I am assuming that over the 5-month term of my contract, November 1st to March 31st, that it'll work itself out. November, I went out once. So far in December, I've gone out 3 times. Looks like it's just going to be 3 times. So when it gets to be January, February, and we get, 15 to 20 snowfalls, I have to suck it up and go. And I know that I've made some money the last couple months on it, but the insurance is definitely, there's a lot of, not just insurance factors, but there's a lot of factors out there that are making it pretty difficult. So you definitely need to know your numbers. As I know Josh is a big fan of numbers. So.
What about you, Alex? What do you got to say about all this?
I mean, the residential, I think, has its perks, but like Josh said, the past couple of years, residential's been kind of a tough game, because, I mean, on a 1.5, 2-inch storm, you might piss somebody off going there and plowing that whole driveway, doing the whole 9 yards when it's going to be 50 degrees that same day. Whereas the commercial, it's, you're holding my insurance policy, I make the decisions, and there's no questions asked. It's a signed contract. So, I mean, I think that either way you go, there's a lot of money in it. I mean, we do both residential and commercial, but we don't really pride ourselves on the residential as much. It's more just like some of our real dense routes of landscaping, or some of our larger landscaping accounts that we want to make sure everything stays the way that it was when we left in the fall cleanup. So we'll maintain it for the snow.
Yeah, so that kind of leads into my next question. Is the majority of your snow and ice management accounts basically year-round clients? It doesn't change, or is there a pretty big variance between the two?
Most of ours are year-round, and if it's not, then we kind of try to make that our mission to take that place and get it as a landscaping or construction stuff and whatever needs to be done around there. I try to take them as a 4-season type deal.
Do you think you've gotten more like landscape clients that you've turned into snow accounts, or more new snow accounts that you've been able to turn into next year's landscape account?
This year, I think it's more landscaping that we turn into snow.
Cool.
Because I'm not really trying to push the landscaping for next year as much as like I'm trying to build up the construction. I'm really only pushing the commercial landscaping for next year, or like a higher end, large estate style home where we're not driving around wasting fuel and paying guys to look at candy bars at the gas station.
That's funny. Don, what about you?
I'd say honestly, it's a pretty different list come winter than it is in the summer. I have a few of the same clients, but I find, and I know I've had this discussion with a couple people in the UAG before, I find snow removal density even more important personally. Um, I basically won't take a client if it's outside of like the two communities around me. Um, you start going farther out, like when everything has to get done that day, it needs to be a very tight group kind of thing, right? It needs to be that dense route. Whereas, in the summertime, if you're cutting lawns and that kind of thing, you can drive, 15 minutes this way and hit 25 clients on a day there and come back home. Whereas with snow, you have to hit those 25 people and these 25 people and these 25 people all in the same day kind of thing. So it's a pretty different list, and I'm sure I know I've lost clients because of that in the past, but it's just a personal choice and trying to, once again, just trying to make the numbers work right in terms of how it works.
Fascinating. What about you, Josh? How does that pan out for you?
So just to refresh my mind, because my attention span kicked out, we're asking if the clients we have roll over into the summer, right?
Yeah. Like, how much variance is there? Is it like just the same sites all the time, and it's just what is it? Some days it's summer, and some days it's winter, or is it like you've got your core accounts year round, and then in winter there's this whole other subset of clients you get into?
My company itself is changing its direction. The way we're trying to go is we're trying to do more year round with more of these larger companies we're working with. As of right now, as of today, it's a completely different clientele and scope of work. We don't do a ton of maintenance. One of the utility companies we work for, we do service one of their hub locations outside of the city. That's not to say that again, we don't do mowing and lawn maintenance as of right now, right? We did before. We got rid of it to focus on the construction. That's not to say that I'm going to give up a decent snow contract because I won't mow. I'd have to look at it where if a client came in and said, hey, I want a company that's going to plow the snow in the winter and then mow the grass in the summer, I'm going to find a way to make that work, whether I'm going to subcontract out that mowing or buy a mower and a trailer and put a guy out there and do it. I would like to have the continuance of the same companies throughout the year where we're on that site and we can get more slips and write stuff up. We had our Amazon location where, we don't do the maintenance up there, but we've been called in to assist with cleaning out retention ponds and cleanup work there. So we've written slips on that stuff, but we always make sure that the clients know what we do. We're like, we don't mow, but we will come in, we'll do a spring fall cleanup, pavers, some irrigation work, anything like that. If there's nothing that we do in house, we can facilitate it for them.
Good stuff. Did you get that Amazon place back again this winter?
No, I actually lost that to ECF. That went national.
Did you really?
Yeah. So that we lost that. That was a big hit. That was a major account for me. And that was turned over. We had that through a national construction company, and we had it for a few years. And they were 97% done with the construction. So Amazon took the keys on that. Once the keys went out, it went out to national. We didn't know. We were already in the transition of bidding with the construction company we had it with, and it was awarded to ECF, who awarded it to a larger outfit out here.
That's silly. Yeah, there's a lot of those type. There's Amazon and Wayfair and a lot of those type of facilities that have all kind of popped up somewhat locally here, and I've noticed like one company did the install and another company did the snow, and then another company was doing the maintenance this summer, and then somebody different's doing the snow, and I'm going, good Lord. Like,
it's the best bidder. It's all down to what fits their budget. And I don't want to say lowest bidder. I'm going to say the best bidder. The best bang for their buck. That's how they're looking at it. And granted, listen, that account was great. I made a shit ton of money off those accounts. I learned a lot. I made a lot of mistakes and I learned a lot. It's bittersweet to not have it, but it's allowed me to step back and reflect on what I've learned, the mistakes I made, and what I want to do and where I want to make progress moving forward in the same aspect, in the same capacity. you know, because now I got a taste of that type of money. I've got a taste of what it takes to manage a major account like that on top of all the other accounts we have and all the subcontractors and all the material that comes in. So it was really, I've learned a lot from it. So bittersweet. Sucks. I would have liked the money this year, but take a step back and reflect and rebuild.
Sure. Well, it is what it is. Typically, from my experience, when things don't work out in one spot, there's typically something else that bubbles up that's better in its place. And then, moreover, like, you know, sometimes if you're a good guy and you're reliable and people like working with you, you just can't shake work sometime. I know I was like a couple live streams ago, I talked about like how I fired this wedding venue because like I didn't mind working with the dad, but when his boys took over, I was like, forget these guys, you know, it wasn't going to work well. We were like oil and water. And, you know, I think I was the one who spoke up, but we were all kind of at the same point where it was just like, enough, you know, time to, you know, there's other fish in the sea. And, you know, I went on to go do other stuff, but, oddly enough, I had a conversation with the dad just a week ago, and I'm going to be helping out on some stuff that's just solely he's involved in. And, you know, part of what we talked about is, you know, there was never really any beef between us. Just, you know, his family made everything messy, and you know, it was years gone by, right? But, you know, the time heals all wounds. And I guess, you know, part of why he brought me in is because, you know, the level of work that he understood us to do and felt comfortable with. And I think that's something that kind of each of us on this live stream kind of has something to share and reflect to the industry is, you know, we've gotten to the spot we are because we're able to, you know, show up on time and do good work and take care of people. And, sometimes people get put in a spot where they got to, you know, appease their family or chase a number. And, you know, they think they're getting a better deal with a national account, and maybe they will, maybe they won't. But most likely, you know, if Josh sticks around a while, he'll probably end up back at that same Amazon place years later. And, you know, if anything, you know, inflation wise, you might be getting paid twice as much 5 or 10 years from now.
So listen, I'll tell you now, if I get a phone call in mid-December, it's a mandatory 2-year contract and a little bit of a bump in that original contract price for me to go back anywhere. So, and that's what a lot of guys don't do. You don't value what you do. A lot of guys, like you say, they'll jump to chase that dollar. And that's a huge problem in the snow aspect of this industry is we chase the dollar. It's like, listen, you're a snow contractor, you don't have a life in the winter. It's hard to go away. It's hard to make plans around family, kids, business. You're up all night. I don't know Alex, how many times were you up last year chasing the forecast for, you know, a half an inch of rain?
Oh yeah.
When it was supposed to be 3 inches of snow, you know, like you stay up all night, you're a madman. And the amount of money you put into it and effort, value yourself and value your company and get paid what you're worth. You know, don't step away from it. Like, I'm going to go down a rabbit hole right now, but like COVID for this industry was a blessing in disguise. It got the mow industry, the hardscape industry, and the plow industry where we needed to be after 20 years of no increases. We were able to surge those numbers. Employees were able to make what they needed to make and actually make a decent living. Now that we're going back to those pre-COVID times, guys are getting a little nervous and starting to cower down to those numbers and drop those numbers and dropping people. Don't do that. Value what you do. Snow plowing, mowing, and pavers is a luxury service. It's luxury. People don't need it. They pay the extra for it. So why would you devalue your services? So stop lowering your prices and stand your ground. Please.
100%.
Insurance is expensive.
I like that, Josh.
100%. Well, I think in reality, the people that can't figure it out over the next couple of years will just go by the wayside because the numbers will force them to do so. The thing that I've seen as the inflation has really kind of brought up, you know, the cost of everything on every line item is if you're not also making up for that on the income and then some. It just the lines eventually don't cross, and I've seen that locally with some other contractors who, if anything, like it's kind of a bummer because their work is good, they're talented, they're not the product on the field, if you will, is really good. It's not shoddy at all, but they've kind of gotten eaten alive between labor and insurance and all the little overhead and direct costs that just beat them up. And in some cases, I think maybe they're a little unable to see the trees through the forest here, and because they didn't make the money they made a couple of years ago, they maybe don't want to stick it out, and that's I think there's an ebb and a flow to how all that works anyway. We kind of talked about that at the beginning, that there's money can be a little cyclical sometimes, and if you're just trying to chase the fast dollar, you're probably not going to. It'll be the people that wait around and have their line in the water waiting for the fish to come that actually catch the big fish, and then you're out there trying to throw your line back in the water again. And it's interesting just being in the industry for 20 years almost now. I've kind of seen who survives and who doesn't, and it doesn't necessarily seem to be that there's like a particular size you got to be to make it, or particular accounts or whatever it is. It just seems like some people are able to maybe tough out some bad times and then capitalize on some good times. And
but it's man, it's like with the snow on the residential end. What I tell guys that I chat out here is like, when people call, have your minimum. I know we're gonna wrap this up soon, and now we're starting to hit more topics, but like, have your minimum. When, like, one thing I used to do when someone would call mid-storm when I have residential, can you come out? Can you play? My guy didn't show up. I said, yeah, it's a $70 minimum to come out. Oh, my guy was there. Well, it's $70 across the board, anything. And I'm just throwing numbers out there. $70, whether you're 50 or 40, have your minimum that you're going to make money. Value yourself. Have that there. Know that you're going to make money during the storm, because rebuilding the front end of a pickup truck is expensive as hell at the end of the year. In addition to, I don't know the last time you guys went to the friggin' grocery store and bought groceries, but I went this morning and that pissed me off. In addition to your liability policy, if your truck breaks, if you have to pay a subcontractor, get paid what you're worth. Don't take a step back, move a step forward. When's the last time Walker Mowers called you guys to tell you they're dropping their prices? They don't, right? Echo dropping their prices. Why are you going to drop your prices or just try to chase that dollar? Have your minimum and stick to it. Go forward, move with it.
Don, what say you?
No, it's a great point. I used to chase some contracts, and guys would come to me and say, this guy was charging me this much, and I dropped my prices at times, and just to get the contract kind of thing. But at the end of the day, like, I have probably the smallest number of contracts that I've had for snow removal, and I'm making the most money that I've made. Like, you need to pick the good contracts and learn, and unfortunately that does come with time, and that does come with experience, kind of thing. But Josh is right. Like, it's not like they can talk about inflation, coming back down, kind of thing. Milk prices aren't going to drop. Echo products aren't going to drop prices. Like, it's 100% correct. Everything's going to stay where it is, and we just have to realize that. And I think the comment that Josh made that really stuck out to me, it is a luxury service. Like, yeah, some of us are just mowing lawns, and I say just in jest, but it's still a luxury service that people are paying for because they don't want to do it. So we need to make sure that we're getting what we deserve for that service. So it's the same thing with snow. Like, I kind of like doing snow because it's minus, at times it's minus 30 degrees Celsius, and no clients come out to talk to me. You can just go out, you can get your work done, and they don't want to do it because it's minus 30 outside. That's a service that they're willing to pay money for, and a lot of the time big money for. So
what about you, Alex?
I agree. I mean, I think that once you set your price, just keep adding from there. I think there's a base, and no, I won't do it for any less, and Well, there was a reason why that other guy didn't show up, right? Is it
Such a
because
good
his truck's
point.
broken and he doesn't have the funds to fix it? Or what is it? There's got to be a reason why he's not there. Or maybe he realized that his bed's more cozy than standing out in your front yard for $40 when really it should be 75 to plow or shovel that driveway. So I think once you set your base price, just add from there and kind of each little thing that somebody needs. Oh, can you put an extra path to my trash cans? Yeah, that's $10 more because that's 10 more minutes of your time. And like Josh said, your truck's got to be worth an X amount per hour. And if it's not making that, then honestly, why even send it out?
I think another comment that Josh made too that really stuck out to me is doing snow removal is not for the lighthearted. Like he said, like how many times are you staying up late, like checking the storms, or I can't tell you how many times I've woken up at like 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, and you're like checking out the window to see where if it started to snow or anything like that yet. And Alex is laughing because he knows exactly what I mean, and Vidal's doing that as we're on this live. So
I'm sure we've
like
all done the spring out of bed
yeah,
too and run
oh,
out the door.
100%. Or like you wake up at 4 a.m. and you thought you had to go and you didn't have to go that day and you give it the old like celebration and then you can't sleep anyways because you're too excited that you didn't have to go do snow. It's not easy, and I think at the end of the day that's why I kind of made the comment earlier about whether it's worth it or not, right? Like as Josh said, there's a lot of time that goes into snow removal that's just planning and scheduling and getting ready for storms that never happen. But there's a lot of added stress that's out there because of it that you need to manage. So it's not
And
easy.
remember, someone's got to pay for that time too.
Yep.
So that needs to be built in because, like Don's saying, that's a lot of time that you're taking away from your family, your free time, your hobbies. You got to get paid for that time.
Staking out lots, making snow maps, taking
Yep.
your guys through. It's all time.
Well said, guys. Well said. So I think that's maybe the takeaway is that it's good to know what you're getting into before you get into any of this stuff, and it's certainly a big leap to go from just maybe having some residential lawn customers and trying to do their driveway, and then jumping up to maybe where Josh is at, where you got salt bins and loaders and subcontractors and a whole host of responsibility and liability that you're rocking and rolling with all the time. And so, be mindful, slow down, ask for help, find a mentor. Certainly there's lots of us over at Echo Means Business and the UAG group who'd love to connect with you and help out. So thank you to the guys here for joining me on tonight's live stream. Want to wish all of you a wonderful, happy holiday season. May it be merry and safe, and everyone's good to each other. And we've wrap up the good and the bad of 2023 and can be optimistic about all wonderful things 2024. No, I'm certainly looking forward to 2024. So I'm Michael from Bedell Property Management, and we look forward to doing more of these in 2024. So we will see you then. Take care, be good to each other, and we'll see you on the next one.